NRA versus Generation Y. Gun control action. NRA versus Generation Y. Gun control action. Thank you for tuning in to Laurel with the Black Political Buzz Network. I am currently at the Smithsonian National Zoo in Washington, D.C. Today I decided to pay a visit to the Smithsonian National Zoo in Washington, D.C. The admission is free. It's a very nice zoo. I mean, I've seen better zoos, but this is a nice zoo. It appears to be very well funded, very clean. I will say that it's a very nice zoo. Like I said, I've seen zoos that are, better funded and so forth. But for Washington, D.C., this is a very nice zoo. So if you're ever in the Washington, D.C. area visiting, please pay a visit to the Washington, D.C. Smithsonian National Zoo. Okay? And so that's where I am today. And I'm going to enjoy myself. So today's topic is about gun control and the NRA and Generation Y population members of our society here in America. Now, we know about 2 weeks ago, our nation experienced once again a very tragic mass shooting. The mass shooting took place in Parkland, Florida, at a high school. There were 17 students who were killed on that particular day by a former student named Nicholas Cruz. Hi. I see your mommy. So the little boy was so cute. So on that particular day, the 14th of February, 2018, our nation experienced another mass shooting that occurred at a school. This incident was similar to what happened at Sandy Brook in Connecticut several years ago. I'm sure you all recall the Sandy Hook shooting. Like I said, it was in Connecticut at another school. That school was an elementary school. That school was an elementary school. And there were about 26 students that were killed, 26. Where at the Parkland High School in Florida, there were 17 students that were killed, and like 15 other students who were severely injured. And the perpetrator or the suspect, where he's since been charged, he's since confessed and he's been charged. He wasn't shot down dead. He wasn't killed as he would have been if Obama was president. If Barack Obama was still president, Nicholas Cruz would have been ordered to be shot dead. But in this instance, because we have President Trump in office, Nicholas Cruz was captured alive, and he confessed to the shooting. Now, I still say, and I will continue to say, that because Nicholas Cruz is only 19 years old, there's no way he could have done all that by himself. There's no way he could have planned all of that by himself. He had some help. Now, whether or not he is confessing to who helped him, because it was a premeditated act. This was premeditated first-degree murder. It wasn't like, it wasn't like a fit of passion. Like he just, all of a sudden he became angry and he went home and grabbed his AR-15 rifle and came back to the school and just shot people up. No, this was premeditated. And he was not working alone. I do believe that Nicholas Cruz was working with some type of terrorist organization. I don't care if it was the KKK, whatever, but he was working with some type of organized, entity. But anyway, he's been charged with all 17 deaths of those 17 students that he murdered on that day 2 weeks ago, February the 14th, 2018, at Parkland High School. Now, ever since that shooting occurred, Generation Y, population members of American society, these are kids or young adults. These are either kids or young adults who were born in the 1990s, okay? I would say mid 80s to 1990s. So I would say anywhere from high school age students all the way to early 30s, like like 32, 33 years old. So Generation Y population members are kids who were born in the late 80s all the way up until the early 1990s. So these are high school students, early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, and early 30s. And they are forcing Congress to take action on gun control. Now, last week, the NRA chief, he made a speech, and he was totally, of course, against any type of gun control action, as he has always been. The NRA has always been against any type of gun control in the USA. Now, I don't know what the purpose is behind that. I don't know why, in spite of all these horrific mass shootings, the NRA would be against gun control. Look like to me like they will be for gun control, because of you. The NRA is a huge organization that supports the Second Amendment rights. I say it again. The NRA is a very, very large organization, very well organized, with many, many members, and they support the Second Amendment. Okay, but gun control, if it's done properly through Congress, it would not violate anyone's Second Amendment rights. I'll repeat, gun control legislation, drafted and enforced by Congress, if it's done right, it would not violate anyone's Second Amendment rights in the USA. So why would the NRA be so against gun control? Something's behind it that's kind of weird. And, whatever. But anyway, the Generation Y students and young adults, they've been protesting, going on the news, forcing our members of Congress who are elected by the people to take action on gun control. No more just debating about gun control, because we've talked about it enough. We've had enough debates, and the more debates that we have, the more mass school shootings that have occurred. So there's no more debating that we need to have. No more debates, no more discussions. We need some action, some legislative action. We need some action by Congress immediately, ASAP. And the first President Trump was kind of quiet, so to speak, on the issue of gun control. At first, President Trump was wanting to talk about mental illness. He kept talking about mental illness, because every time we've had a mass shooting, the members of Congress and the NRA want to focus on mental illness, when that's not what the issue is. If we had proper gun control laws in this nation, mental illness would not be used. Mental illness, would not be a problem as it relates to people using weapons, guns. I'll say it again. If we had proper, good gun control laws in this nation, mental illness wouldn't be a problem in terms of gun control or the use of weapons and guns, because people who are mentally ill would not be able to get their hands on weapons or guns to use to murder masses of people. So the issue here is not mental illness. The issue is gun control, because gun control legislation would create guidelines, regulations, strict laws, very strict laws that would carefully screen every person that applies for a permit, and it will force straw buyers and gun shop owners to carefully make sure that everybody coming into their shop to buy a weapon or a gun is carefully screened before they're able to sell a weapon to any consumer. I'll say it again. If we had proper gun control laws in place, proper congressional legislation in place to control guns and the use of guns in this nation, then people who have mental illnesses would not be able to get their hands on guns, because it would force straw buyers and gun shop owners to properly screen out everyone who comes to purchase a weapon or a gun, so that those people who are mentally ill would not be able to get their hands on one to go out and commit mass murders like Nicholas Cruz did. So the issue is gun control legislation. congressional gun control legislation. And the NRA can no longer be allowed to buy off members of Congress and keep this country in hostage and in fear because of guns being easily accessible. Easily accessible. So Generation Y students and young adults are forcing Congress and President Trump to man up. Generation Y young adults and students are forcing President Trump to face reality. It's not just a mental health issue. It is a gun control issue. And our Generation Y young adults, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of our Generation Y young adults and students standing up to the NRA and the NRA's big money. They're not being, forced into a corner to let the NRA bully them. The NRA is a bully. The NRA is a bully organization that has bullied Congress for decades. Bullied Congress into not passing proper gun control legislation. But that's over. And I want our Generation Y students and young adults to continue to speak up to President Trump, to continue to go on TV, to continue to go to town hall meetings, to continue to go to the polls and vote out of office every member of Congress who is against proper gun control laws. I repeat, members of the Generation Y population in this nation, if you're old enough to vote during the next election, vote out of office everyone who is against gun control legislation. Our nation needs gun control. These mass shootings have to stop. What's more important? The NRA being allowed to bully our members of Congress or human life? What is more important, President Trump? The NRA being able to control members of Congress and control the president with its big money, or those 17 dead students from Parkland High School? The NRA versus Generation Y. Gun control. Thank you for tuning in to Laurel with the Black Political Buzz Network. Goodbye.